would like everybody that is in support to stand behind the podium right now, please. Okay, good morning. Thank you for attending. We are here today to plead with the legislature to pass medical cannabis bill this year, the South Carolina Compassionate Care Act. It will provide relief to South Carolinians who have relentlessly suffered far too long. South Carolina patients and doctors deserve the medical option that patients have in 33 other states. Year after year, seriously ill patients and their families have dragged ourselves to the State House to plead for compassion. Our loved ones deserve a chance for relief from symptoms that are destroying their quality of life, including life-threatening seizures, excruciating pain, and self-injury and aggression related to severe autism. We are pleading with the legislature to pass the bill this year. South Carolinians deserve the same medical options that patients have in 33 other states, including Arkansas, Louisiana, and Utah. My name is Judy Ganem, and I am the Executive Director of CSC.Health. I am also a mother of a 14-year-old girl, Kira Lynn, who was born with a rare genetic disorder, tethered cord syndrome, and who has been diagnosed with severe autism. Today we are joined by the South Carolina Podiatric Medical Association, the South Carolina Compassionate Care Alliance, as well as doctors, patients, and caregivers who have connected at the State House in order to stand up for patient rights. Our right to choose a safer alternative to the medications that have caused our loved ones and such devastating side effects. Our right for doctors to have another tool in their toolkit. Our right for patients with specific debilitating conditions like cancer, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain, severe autism, PTSD, and the list goes on, to access medical cannabis under a doctor's care with a doctor's recommendation. You will hear today from respected people in your communities, brothers, sisters, mothers, doctors, next-door neighbors, and church members, people who care about patients and who care about their safety. We are imploring the legislator to follow the will of 72% of South Carolina voters and to pass a medical cannabis law. First, I would like to introduce Stephen Blanchard, the Executive Director of the South Carolina Podiatric Medical Association, who served over 6.5 terms as a legislator himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Tammy, you'll step up here with me. Folks, I am Steve Blanchard, and I and Tammy together are the representatives for the South Carolina Podiatric Medical Association. We're their executive directors. For some of you that may not have heard, our president, Dr. Jamila Lemon, her father passed away Sunday afternoon after a long illness, to our understanding. She had written a letter she wanted to go over with you folks as the president of our association, representing our association as a longtime member. When she couldn't make it because of untimely death, she asked Tammy and myself if we would represent the association, which we do, in legislative matters and other things, and we're more than happy to do that today. Her letter goes to say that South Carolina Compassionate Care Act, and that's really what this is. If you believe in compassionate care, that's what this is about, folks. All said and done, at the end of the day, it is compassionate care. The treatment of medical marijuana when it provides a therapeutic and palliative benefit used under the supervision of a physician or a podiatrist. It is a position of the South Carolina Podiatric Medical Association that the state and federal governments should include podiatrists in the way of professionals who may, within their scope of practice, care for patients and certify medical marijuana patients, and at such time state or federal law permits, prescribe medical marijuana to their patients. Our national association, the American Podiatric Medical Association, fully supports this position, granting doctors of podiatric medicine the legal authority to use the need for medical marijuana for patients suffering from chronic pain. You may ask, what kind of chronic pain would podiatrists experience with their patients? There are a lot of different things that they do with the ankle surgeries that they're now currently doing. It can be chronic pain such as diabetic neuropathy, peripheral neuropathy, post-traumatic arthritis, many different examples of what you've already heard from what Judy said on the onset of this. At the same time, to manage chronic pain for these conditions, podiatrists will need to be allowed the ability for the use of medical marijuana to treat patients with these conditions and certainly others that they see on a daily basis. But folks, from a personal perspective, I'm going to take you back 6 years when my mother suffered with pain, and I'm from the old school. I'm one of the few people that has never put a marijuana joint in my mouth. I have never done that as an individual. I can stand before you and tell you and my God that. It's never happened. But to see my mother in a hospital bed with a broken femur that could not be repaired because of her age, if my mother could have some relief, and she's dead, and she's been dead 6 years, but if my mother could have had any relief from that, I would have been the first one to have rolled a fat one and started for it and put it in her mouth so she could in turn have the benefits of that if it helped her ease her pain. So with that being said, folks, we're happy to support that. Our association supports it, and Dr. Hare is here to answer any medical questions concerning that you folks may have. So at this point in time, I'll stop and let you ask me or Dr. Hare any questions that you may have. Okay, any questions? Again, thank you for letting us be here. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy and Steve Blanchard. Next, we have Margaret Richardson from Hilton Head. She suffers from a condition called trigeminal neuralgia, which is a term for chronic pain, and she will tell you all about it.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm Margaret Richardson, and I'm going to tell you my story. I'm a mother, a wife, a grandmother, a sister, and when you're stricken with chronic pain or disease, it usually hits you like a Mack truck. None of us can be prepared. About 6 years ago, when I contracted a neurological condition called trigeminal neuralgia, I went into agonizing pain. My doctors did the best they could do. All they had as an option in their toolbox was to give me opioids. And when you are screaming out loud with a pain that's like a Bunsen burner burning in the side of your face, you don't ask questions. I didn't realize that it could destroy my stomach, but I had no choice. So 4 months later, I was yellow, 113 pounds, curled up in my bed, could barely eat because my stomach had been ravaged, and ended up making it to a surgery that helped, but it wasn't the answer. Back up about a year ago, when it hit with a vengeance, I had no tool. I couldn't take the opioids again. They had almost literally killed me. It was not an option. And like a lot of you, I understand how confusing it is to not understand medical cannabis. I didn't know what it was until just over a year ago. But people who had been familiar with my suffering and my condition came forward with it, and I tried it. And what was amazing to me is it allowed me to get up, even though it cut my pain because mine's neurological, and medical cannabis is actually anti-inflammatory. So in my case, it gave me tremendous relief. But it's illegal. So imagine what it's like. I'm not just speaking for myself. We have vets who gave their lives and give their lives to protect ours, who are dealing with PTSD. We have children who are losing their childhoods when there is a means by which they can have the relief to not have seizures, to not hurt, to go play with their friends. We have people literally dying of cancer, and I've known several who have no way to have relief without the medical cannabis, because what that does is it quells the nausea, It allows them to talk and be present with their family as they leave this world rather than be knocked out in a coma so that they don't hurt. So I'm standing here for constituents all over this great state who deserve an option for treatment. And I'll tell a quick story. Because it's illegal, we are forced to creep around like criminals. And I almost didn't come today. I didn't know if I would have the composure to say what I'm about to say. Yesterday, I ran out of my supply of medical cannabis, a 2-month supply. None of us ever know where we will get it. I don't know what I will do tomorrow. I don't know when I will get any again. I don't have a source because I'm not allowed to go to a doctor in my state who has the proper credentials to give me a prescription for my specific need so that I can be treated. You creep around like a criminal. You're scared when you travel or you drive that you'll get caught, yet it's your lifeline for relief. So what do? I was in Greenville at a wedding last year, and my husband could not be with me. I didn't want my friends who gave me a ride to the reception to get in trouble if we got pulled over. So I left my medical cannabis in my hotel. Right after the bride and groom danced, I had an attack. I ran out of the room, I got to the sofa, and I was shaking too hard to hit the Uber app. My friends fortunately saw, they came with me, and they went and got their car. And they witnessed what only my husband has seen: the agony, the biting back the tears, the doing natural childbirth, breathing so you can control yourself. And I did that until I got to the hotel. They wanted to call the paramedics when they saw my condition. I said, please let me get to my medicine in my room. I will be fine. That medicine was my medical cannabis. That's what saved me. And that's what has kept my pain, chronic pain, under control. And I have to say, these past 2 months with the medical cannabis I had have been the best pain-free 2 months of 5 years of my life. And I want to stress what opioids do. You've all read about addiction, shattered families, all the devastating side effects. But what you don't read about is the human cost. And I invite all of our legislators to pause. If it was your wife, husband, child, grandchild, number one, often people depend on 2 incomes. You can't work. People lose their jobs. Not everyone has a generous husband like mine who drops everything to keep them alive or feed them a meal when the opioids have rendered them too weak to get up, too weak to feed themselves. But if it was your family member, I also want you to understand, not only do you end up in the bed, it's like a lonely prison. I want to blow up my bedroom walls. I don't ever want to see them again. But it's isolating socially. You can't go be with your friends. You never know what you will be like on a given day. So I just know that our legislators have the power to affect life-changing relief. And a no vote equals 2 things: opioids or agony. So I really plead with you to give all of us who need it a chance to have a medical prescription for cannabis that's well regulated through a professional as an option. So not only can we get out of the bed, but we can live life. We can be grandmothers. We can do cannonballs with our grandchildren. We can be wives to our husbands. Please give us a chance to treat our specific needs legally, and let us, I repeat, have an opportunity to live life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Richardson. Next, we have Dr. Monte Singleton, MD, from the Singleton Healthcare in both Orangeburg and Santee. Thank you.
Good morning. I've driven myself up here in the cold this morning from Bamberg because this issue is important enough that we should get the word out. And I'm from Bamberg, where our beloved ambassador, Nikki Haley, hails from. And I would just like to stress 5 points this morning. The first thing is to tell you a little bit about something called the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is a system in our bodies very, very similar to our nervous system, our vascular system, wherein it goes everywhere throughout the body. And it even goes to our immune system. It goes to our tonsils. And this endocannabinoid system has a wonderful God-created herb that supports the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoids that we are most readily talking about is THC and CBD. There are 450 actual active ingredients in the marijuana plant, including terpenes and flavonoids along with the cannabinoids. But we are specifically looking at how these cannabinoids support the endocannabinoid system. And it does it by receptors. There are receptors all over our bodies that respond to these chemicals that I have just described. And the endocannabinoid system itself is in the body to achieve and maintain balance and harmony. And that's why there are many conditions that affect both the physical as well as the emotional health of individuals benefit from medical marijuana. It's because these properties that are found in the cannabis plant are there to really, really uplift the endocannabinoid system, which has been suffering. Similarly, how some people need Synthroid because their thyroid system doesn't work appropriately. Many people need vitamin D because they had become depleted of it. But I think that our endocannabinoid systems in individuals who suffer from some of these conditions like fibromyalgia and trigeminal neuralgia benefit because of the calming effects and the balance that it achieves. Now, when we look at cannabis, and I could tell, Margaret, certainly you could go to some street down in Hilton Head and find cannabis. But that's one of the fears and problems with just having cannabis on the street, as opposed to having medical marijuana that is going to be researched and tested, found pure, and is going to be a much, much better product than a street-grade marijuana. I have lived, practiced, and licensed in 5 different states: California, Delaware, Oregon, Washington, and now South Carolina. And when we look at the health rankings of those states, California being number 7, Delaware being number 15, Oregon being number 17, Washington being number 4, and South Carolina being number 36. We can argue all we want to against medical marijuana and the Compassionate Care Act, but when we compare these 4 states that allow medical marijuana and provisions for their patients, medical marijuana has not hurt their health statistics. And so that's very, very important for us to understand there are states all around the country that are benefiting, the patients are benefiting from medical marijuana who need it. And the last point that I would like to make in conclusion is, number 1, let's provide a safe, clean product for our patients. Can you imagine what it would be like if Margaret was to go out and get a street-grade marijuana and end up with some kind of infection because of the impurities that were in there, or being poisoned because of some chemical that was sprayed on it to eradicate it that ended up on the market. So let's make it clean, let's make it safe, let's provide access to our patients who need it. Some of them go out of state to get it, but most don't and most can't. And the third and final point I'd like to make is let's all of us show compassion. Those of us who support this bill, let's call our legislators and let them know that we support this. Our legislators, let us show some compassion in passing this bill so people like Margaret can have access to medical marijuana. The majority of people in South Carolina would like to have access to medical marijuana. And those of you who are totally against it, do not stand in the way of those who are benefiting from getting the product. Thank you very much. God bless.
Next, we have Geoffrey Lee, a war veteran from Iraq, from Columbia.
Good morning. So my name is Geoffrey Lee. I'm a Desert Storm veteran. Some of you may know after the war ended, it was a really short war, and the media began to talk about something called Gulf War syndrome. Later it was renamed Gulf War illness. Approximately 35% of the 697,000 service members who deployed had symptoms of fibromyalgia, widespread pain, gastrointestinal problems, memory and concentration issues, and chronic fatigue syndrome. And though $500 million has been spent on Gulf War research, there is not a unified treatment protocol for it. What you'll find is, depending on which VA you go to or which doctors you see, they're going to try to treat you symptomatically. And unfortunately, many of the drugs that I have been prescribed have negative side effects, which just outweigh the use of them. One of the challenges I think all of us face is we want to be able to be healthy, we want to be able to feel good, but when we have to rely on some of these medications, we have setbacks and stuff, and I've had similar problems. And so the question is, why cannabis? The environmental exposure that we had was to some pretty dangerous things. Depleted uranium from the weapons we used, nerve agent from the weapons we destroyed, and from the oil well fires and the other toxins that were in the environment. And these are the type of things that can have long-term effects on your genetics and cause you some serious harm. One of the reasons that I think for myself that both CBD and THC is useful, and I'll just read a little bit of blurb. This is from Cannabinoids as Antioxidants and Neuroprotectants. This is a patent that's owned by Health and Human Services. And it states, cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties. And it says that this newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment and prophylaxis of a wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases, such as ischemia, age-related inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. It goes on to say that oxidative-associated diseases include, without limitation, free radical-associated diseases such as ischemia, ischemic reperfusion injury, inflammatory diseases, systemic lupus, myocardial infarction, hemorrhagic stroke, and things like Down syndrome, Crohn's disease, and autoimmune diseases. It's interesting that there's several patents that show that both THC and CBD can treat inflammatory diseases, age-related diseases. One of the things they say about Gulf War veterans is that we're aging rapidly for some reason. Compared to our peers, people the same age who are not deployed, they don't have some of the same problems that we have. And so I would hope that, taking a look at this bill isn't perfect by any means, but I'll take an imperfect bill if that means that we're going to have access to this really valuable and useful substance. And I would say to the people who are against it, and remind them that they too are not immune. Every single person that's ever lived, every person that lives today, and every person to be born in the future is going to have health problems. And you're going to want to have access to this. And I think that it's time. There's enough research, there's enough science that shows that it's safe and effective. And my hope is that the people who are making decisions on this will see that. Thank you for letting me take your time today.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Next, we have Jill Swing of Charleston.
Thanks, Judy. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Jill Swing, and I am from Charleston. I have a daughter who has severe epilepsy. At some points, she was having 800 to 1,000 seizures a day. And almost exactly 6 years ago, I made my first trip to Columbia to advocate for medical cannabis legalization. Back then, it was the CBD bill. And what I realized afterwards was that we needed access to whole plant cannabis, including THC, for patients. So that was 6 years ago. My daughter was 6 years old when I started this. She is 12 now. This is half of her life that I've been advocating for her to have access to medication that I know is beneficial for her, and that patients like her in 34 other states have access to now. And that's not okay. Half of her life is gone. Half of her life has been spent suffering because our lawmakers are incapable of making a decision and passing a bill to allow patients to have safe access to products that may help them. And in that 6 years, not only have I watched my daughter suffer, I've had the opportunity to meet and network with many other patients and amazing moms who have come to the State House, like myself, to ask their lawmakers to please pass a compassionate, comprehensive medical cannabis bill. And a lot of them are here today, but for 1 second, I want to talk about the ones who aren't here. And I know of at least 3 moms who are not here today, who have come up here previously, and they're not here today because their children have died waiting for this bill to pass. And that is not okay. It's not. 34 other states have this. This is not anything new. This is not anything revolutionary. And the time has come for our lawmakers to act, and to act urgently. We're still waiting. Children are dying, patients are dying, patients are leaving this state because they don't have access to medication, and the pharmaceutical options that are available now aren't cutting it. They're not getting it done. And delaying this bill is delaying compassionate use. And compassion delayed is compassion denied. It's time for our lawmakers to act. Our state motto, while I breathe, I hope, the patients are done hoping. We want action. We want it now. And we just had a hearing on the bill yesterday, and there was no action on the bill. They didn't take a vote. They didn't move it forward. What are we waiting on? So I'm just here today, one, to share my story, to be a voice for those who couldn't be here, and also to encourage our lawmakers to listen and to move this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Lastly, we have Dr. Aaron Hare, DPM of Florence, South Carolina. He works at Physicians Foot Care, and thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. Good morning, my name is Dr. Aaron Hare. I'm a board-certified podiatric foot and ankle surgeon practicing in Florence, South Carolina for Physicians Foot Care. I'm here today to voice my support for the Compassionate Care Act here in South Carolina. I believe there is a need for medical cannabis in South Carolina because from a physician standpoint, it will be one more tool in our toolbox from which we can call upon when needed to attack problems for which current medical technology has not been the answer. From a patient standpoint, medical cannabis to many suffering in the state from chronic, severe, incurable disease or severe injury may prove to be a saving grace where conventional medicine has failed them or side effects from such treatments have been incompatible with quality existence. Cannabis has been, for over 12,000 years, has been a plant used by humans for food, fiber, inebriation, and medicine. The plant has many species, of which the main genotypes are cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and crosses between the known hybrids. The closely related and more widely accepted plant, which is used today for health and wellness, raw materials, dietary fiber, textiles, is the hemp plant. The two are very similar in appearance but quite different in biochemical makeup. The cannabis plant typically is higher in psychoactive THC or tetrahydrocannabinol content compared to hemp, which is far higher in non-psychoactive CBD or cannabidiol. Despite THC and CBD being the most widely known and discussed cannabinoids in the plant, cannabis has, well, as Dr. Singleton has said, well over 400 known compounds within the plant that interact with the human molecular structure. Modern research of the plant did not occur until the discovery of the cannabinoid THC in 1964 by Dr. Raphael McCollum in Israel. But the discovery of how cannabinoids interact with the human body came about in the late 1980s with the discovery of the human endocannabinoid system, as Dr. Singleton has mentioned. This system comprises of two receptor types, CB1 and CB2 receptor types, with the CB1 receptor types being high concentration in the brain and central nervous system, CB2 receptor types higher concentration in peripheral tissues and peripheral nervous system. It is of note that because the CB1 receptor type is devoid or void in the brainstem, there's never been a reported case of death with cannabis use, as there has been an overdose deaths related to opioids. In my practice, I wanted the opportunity to sit down and discuss with my patients the problems of their health that may have never been looked at from a perspective of holistic healing and symptom control. This became even more important to incorporate in my practice as my patient population is 80% seniors that are at risk of ill side effects from multiple pharmacologic agents used to manage other disease processes. Over the past 3 years in my practice, I have found high-quality, high-dosage CBD derived from hemp has been a useful tool that I have implemented in my treatment protocols for diabetic neuropathy or peripheral nerve dysfunctions, degenerative arthritis, and post-operative recovery. I have seen diabetic neuropathy patients who have taken multiple pharmaceuticals with no results, or with results with ill side effects, come in still suffering. They have taken CBD as I have prescribed and come in for the first time in a long time with relief from the burning, stinging pains in their feet that once prevented them from sleeping at night or being able to comfortably wear shoes. I have seen the good that even this one cannabinoid from the cannabis plant can do for my patients, and I'm excited about the future options that may be in store to offer as we, as physicians, learn more through bench research and patient trials. There may be conditions that impact my patients that we may learn are better combated with higher THC preparations or with one-to-one ratios of THC-CBD. Only clinical trials, research, education, and candid discussions between doctors and their patients will hold the answers. In closing, all I ask is that when you, the legislators, decide upon this bill, you decide to listen to the facts, not hearsay or fear-based subjective opinions of those not intimately involved in the care or regulation of these serious conditions as outlined in the bill. I ask that you, the legislators, choose to see the humanity in those who suffer, and I ask that you make a conscious effort to be the positive change that they so desperately need. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Everyone.